Okay, guys, good morning, everyone. We know it's pretty early. So we start this morning with the industrial session. So we start with Christian, and he will start with his presentation with Il buono, il brutto e il cattivo. And that's the Italian translation. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay, that's the Italian translation. Can you repeat this, please?
Il buono, il brutto e il cattivo.
Very good, thank you.
So
I don't have
slides.
to embarrass myself here. As you've seen on the previous slide, that's Clint Eastwood. And that's the only picture for the entire presentation, because I figured it was so early in the morning that most of you will prefer not looking, but just listening or sleeping. So you can just close your eyes and listen. And if it's not exciting enough, then I'm to blame. So the good, the bad, and the ugly was the name of the presentation. Experiences and lessons learned from years at the forefront of enterprise file sync and share. A lot of you people might ask yourself, what is he talking about? And possibly considering the last year, a lot of you people may expect that I'm talking about the good, which is OwnCloud, the bad, which is Nextcloud, and the ugly, which is the 2C files. That's not going to be the case. So if that's your expectation, you can continue sleeping. It's not going to be about that. I'm going to talk about success stories. Success that is largely responsible for many of the stories that all of you with your deployments have, be it an OwnCloud deployment or whatever. But generally speaking, CS3 in its third incarnation is some tremendous success story, I think, because that type of deployment of EFSS wasn't there before. And now it is, and I think it's a tremendous community effort to have reached that success. And with that said, I would like to express my thanks to the staff from SURF, from ETH, and CERN for making this possible for the third time. This time in Amsterdam, the last time in Zurich. And Arnet, of course, true, you joined in with that endeavor. And of course, CERN at the first event. So what is the success with this EFSS stuff that we're talking about? I'm going to share with you a bunch of sound bites from the past few years. One of them was #2 solution after email within a year, which is shocking if you're running an IT organization, because that's an entire new world of problems, right? Or no end user training required. It is an assumption that a lot of people say, oh, it's no problem, end users don't require training. But it's actually a big factor for actual efficiency of software deployed somewhere. So it's great to have software where nobody requires any training. Or, as some people said, it's like Dropbox, but better. And as we've seen in other talks here, a big part of the motivation, sorry to the Dropbox guys if they're already here, people are actually deploying this stuff to get rid of Dropbox, right? And even somebody else here had the talk how to build your own Dropbox and how to replace Dropbox, how to avoid users having Dropbox. So that is a motivation that the very successful company like Dropbox has to live with. Another thing that I heard was somebody from the audience here said it, and somebody can probably relate to the installation. 700% growth last year. That was from last CS3 to this one. So it's a really tremendous success of software. But EFSS, is that really what this conference is about? That's what they claim. I don't think it is. So I'm challenging the organization committee that it's not really an EFSS conference, but we're looking at an actual game changer. It's a disruptive thing that everyone here is doing or trying to do, really disruptive. Especially to the work and life balance of admins. Some cases could be the switch case, where they had the upgrade from hell, and various other headaches in this extremely disruptive process. It's just, sometimes it's not easy, but it's still a revolution, I think, right? Think about it. 3 years ago, there was no conference. Now we have literally dozens of sites, hundreds of sites across the world with very, very successful deployments. So that revolution, what do revolutions require, and what does it have to do with the good, the bad, and the ugly? I think it requires hard decisions by everyone. And why? Because IT continents are shifting dramatically. I think it's the biggest revolution since people who cannot operate a command line discovered the internet. And we're really having a very, very significant paradigm shift in the entire IT world. Most end users are not aware of that, but I think it all revolves around data sovereignty in a way. Especially what we guys are doing here. It's not about EFSS, that's the tool, but it's about data sovereignty. And as some, let's say, industry experts call it, data infrastructure transformation. That's a word that I picked up from Gartner. That's their big word for our solution, OwnCloud, these days. I didn't know it, they invented it. It's an interesting word. And it's not about which this or that to buy. That's not the infrastructure transformation that I'm talking about. But it's about making conscious decisions, and the hard decisions that I was talking about. And now we're getting to the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, in my understanding and my assumption, what I'm trying to sell you, so to say, is the good will be the ones who make a very conscious decision that the way that they transform their infrastructure is one where they control their data sovereignty. However that may look like in the application and infrastructure case, but the sovereignty resides with you. That's the good decision. The bad decision, in my judgment, will be the ones that say, we will outsource everything that we have to a random cloud provider, with a wonderful example by Amazon done last month with their new Snowmobile, the truck, 100 petabyte truck where you can put all your data and ship it off to somewhere to never be seen again, except that it will appear in Utah, but that's a different story. So that is one decision, and especially from a European point of view, that's a very bad decision, I think, because all the critical personnel and all the process and data, all the know-how, all the value that resides in that is leaving your control forever. Because as Amazon put it, it takes 27 years to migrate 1 exabyte to Amazon, but not with Snowball. It only takes 6 months, and then you're locked in forever. And what is the ugly, you may ask? Because we had the topic, the good, the bad, the ugly. The ugly is whatever happens when you don't make that conscious decision to invest hard in your own data sovereignty, or to not do it and invest hard into the stock exchange value of a company providing cloud services. And I think we are already seeing a lot of the ugly happen. The ugly is what happens when you have a large company, publicly listed, and they all of a sudden discover that they have an insane amount of connections going to some Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever service, including a lot of money charged on company credit cards for these services. And it's a bank or insurance company, and you literally don't know what data resides there. But you can assume it's probably not all Britney Spears MP3, but also work-related stuff. So that's somewhere unregulated. And all these accidents are waiting to happen is what we're seeing with all these security issues around various providers. I don't want to repeat certain names, right, all over. So I think this is really something that requires every organization in the world to either join the ugly or have a resilient strategy. What that may be, it is different. From our judgment, that resilient strategy is that you need to have plan A, plan B, just like you need to have in software development and deployment, actually. So whatever that strategy is, it will require to be what you will call highly available, which means there needs to be redundancy. That redundancy doesn't come from single entities, single people. That comes from taking precautions to have a strategy in place that will really, really ensure that whatever good or bad decision you make works strategically in the long run, not next month, not next year's budget, but in 5 years. And ideally, especially in this surrounding with you people, it should be peer-reviewed. That's a very strong name in the scientific world. That's why I put it, as a quote, peer-reviewed. So there should be more people thinking if that's really a strategically viable strategy or just someone's idea and preference that has no footing in the reality. Because that will not work for the long run. There need to be multiple people thinking about what's the right step. Because only in that way you will get something that's sustainable for 5, 8, 10 or more years. Because that's the life cycle that you would want for a strategic choice on what to do with your data. And that's why I've come here to introduce to you the OnCloud Foundation, which is actually a URL that you can enter. The OnCloud Foundation was the vehicle that we created last year before certain, let's say, upshifts happened with OnCloud, and we were not really able to pursue it with the effort that we actually designed it to be pursued. We are restarting that right now with a tremendous effort, and this is, so to say, the pitch to get all of you that are interested to join and invite you to collaborate with us on OnCloud Foundation. Somebody here in the room asked me, why do I need it? I can talk to developer X, Y, Z directly and solve my problem. Absolutely correct. But that bilateral discussion is not scalable, is not sustainable. It's depending on two people and nobody else will know the outcome. That is certainly interesting to dozens or hundreds of people across the globe. So it needs to be scalable in the way that stuff in OnCloud Foundation is organized. And it needs to be a solid legal entity, because that's the world that we have right now. It needs to be legally sound. So what we didn't try to reinvent the wheel, because that's stupid. It's a waste of resources, right? So we just modeled it after successful foundations. I'm not entirely sure how the percentage is, but probably between 95 and 98% copy-paste from the OpenStack Foundation, which is a very proven model that is tremendously successful. That's what we've done. So with that said, we cannot do this on our own. So there are stakeholders with, I would call it, active intention to join. Active intention in this regard means that they said, yes, we will join, but we need to go through all our internal legal hoops, which is an ongoing process with 50 pages or so of legal paperwork around a solid legal entity and foundation. And the first one on the list back there, Peter, wake up, is Peter Segedi from Géant as a representative and proxy for various NRENs, namely, I'm seeing Aconet there, Switch, DFN is one of the entities, GRNet from Greece is an entity, CheckNet is an entity. So there are various NRENs that are running large OnCloud installations that have suggested to Géant that they would like them to be involved as a representative to represent their interest in the OnCloud Foundation. Another one that was similarly is currently evaluating joining and working through the legal framework is CERN. That was confirmed to me yesterday by Massimo and his colleagues, so thank you for that. And also RNet, that are also sponsoring or organizing the CS3 now with Guido Aben and David Jericho and his colleagues sitting over there. Then ETH Zurich was also confirmed to us by Thilo Steiger sitting over there. Then we have GWDG, whom are not present, but they are a large German facility called Gesellschaft für wissenschaftliche Datenverarbeitung Göttingen, which is GWDG. And they are running a statewide cloud called the Niedersachsen Cloud that will start later this year. And we have, of course, the prototype of all the state clouds that we have in Germany, which is Gebo with Holger sitting over there. And some others that are interested in joining. There are a bunch more. Some I cannot name. Some I cannot put on the slides, but name. And we are talking to some industry partners. IBM is currently looking at it as well. And that's really the core of the OnCloud Foundation, because we don't think that we as a company or any other company can solve the tremendous challenge of a long-term strategic data infrastructure transformation and whatever it requires, because it's far beyond EFSS, without doing it ourselves or themselves. So what is going to happen in the OnCloud Foundation? It is being drafted up, of course, But generally, from a high-level perspective, there will be technical working groups, there will be community and outreach working groups, marketing and communication working groups to organize events and tell people about what's working, and all of these typical activities that are implied by such a foundation approach. So you may ask, who can join? Anyone interested contributing to the ecosystem, right? Anyone interested contributing to the ecosystem that we're seeing. And as individual person, I'm developer XYZ, or as legal entity, be it a company or a university or whatever, everyone can join. So once you joined, what can you do? How can you contribute? Go to oncloud.org or oncloud.foundation and really sign your interest. We are just working through who is going to be in a specific role in the head of the working groups. Let's say SAML-based IDP working group parts or storage. All of these places will have a forum there to discuss which way to take the solution forward, not in 1 year, but what is going to be viable in 5 years, not 1 year. Any questions?
So let's thank Christian. Are there any questions? Still quite early morning, maybe.
Yes.
We need the first round of coffee. David, wait, I come with a microphone.
Surely I thought mine's moving. Are there any particular model organizations that you're planning on basing this on, like in terms of how they interact with software development projects and so on, I mean, such as OpenStack, Apache, whatever?
We've had this discussion in a call, I think it was last week, where we had an organization chart up of what could be the organization. And the question actually came up, why is there no specific organization in the technical working group on this, and this topic? And I simply said that we're working on this on a high level right now. So why should we, who are self-aware and clueless in these matters, dictate on how this should be done? And that's really the approach there. I mean, why should I, as a non-engineer, tell the engineering people what the priorities are and how they're going to be solved? So it's really about creating a shell to ensure that the experts can do the work that they know best in the way that they want to do.
Any other question? Okay, let's thank again Christian.
Yeah, thank you.